Hey everybody, my name's Tyler. Hope you're doing well. The past few weeks I've been posting these videos on here, these shorts, talking about writing, some of them more funny and weird, like me going outside and laying on the ice in my sleeping bag, or some of them have been more kind of messages like anti-AI, or talking about why there's no such thing as aspiring writers, that if you are putting in the effort in writing, regardless if you publish, you are indeed a writer. And it's been a lot of fun. So I thought today I would try my hand at a longer video, and I have no idea how the algorithm works here, so like maybe nobody will watch this. But I wanted to do a little video talking about, like, I guess how I got into writing and the story behind Princess of the Stars, which is the sci-fi novel I'm working on. And we'll just kind of lay it all out there, what started Princess of the Stars and why it means a lot to me. So yeah, let's just start at the beginning. When I was growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina, early 2000s, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I had a best friend, Matthew Kugler, who is still one of my best friends. And we used to pretend to be superheroes. We grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, other anime. We grew up watching like Marvel and DC, like a lot of those early movies. And we became inspired. We wanted to be superheroes, as really a lot of young kids do. But we really stuck with it. I think we pretended to be these characters from about like 2001 to like 2008. And he played a character from Saturn who had fire powers, and I played a character from Pluto with ice powers. And we developed a whole world. We played multiple characters, we had villains, we had heroes, there was a whole system of how things worked in this world. And it was a lot of fun. Like, there would be times where he'd come over to my house, or I'd go over to his house, and we'd be like, hey, let's play our game, and we'd pretend to be these heroes. By the time we were getting to like sixth grade or so, we kind of got to the point where like, okay, I think we're done actually acting this out. But we still had the characters in our minds. And initially, like, okay, what should we do? Matthew was a decent artist at the time, and we thought about maybe doing a comic, but I wasn't really a great artist in that way. So I began thinking about, okay, what if we make this a book? Some sort of novel, because I liked reading back then, and I still do. And I was a little bit nervous tackling the characters that Matthew and I played initially. So I thought about doing an origin story, like a prequel to the world, focusing on the founder of basically the solar system wide nation that these characters came from. And I was working on that in about 7th grade, and my 7th grade English teacher, Miss Martin, came up to me because she knew that I liked to write. And at the time, we had this assignment where we had to read a little bit every single week, and we had a little reading log. And she said to me, like, hey, Tyler, if you want, instead of reading every week, you could work on your story a little bit and give it to me, and I'll give you feedback. I actually have a full short about this very topic, and I've actually talked to Miss Martin since the short was posted, and she really appreciated it, so that was super cool. But yeah, she gave me feedback. She read it. I would actually put it on a hard drive and give it to her, not a floppy disk, a flash drive, and give it to her. And looking back, the story wasn't great. The writing wasn't great. I think I've got it somewhere. But what meant a lot to me, and what I tried to do, because I'm a teacher now as well, is it just made me feel seen and made me want to keep on doing my thing, right? It made me want to keep on writing. And I kind of wrote on and off throughout high school. And then junior and senior years are where I really kind of officially tried to tackle, for the first time, the origin of the two characters Matthew and I created, right? The characters who are, Jack and Rob from Princess of the Stars. It took me about a year, and it was okay, right? I think the best thing about that is I finished it, right? It was a story that had a beginning and an end. And then in college, as I'm working on my education degree, I worked on the story here and there. And actually, 2018 was the first time I actually queried the story. Where actually, I did reach out to publishers, to agents. I did my research. I found who I thought were the right agents who might be interested in the book, and I wrote query letters, and they all got rejected. Now, rejection is part of the process. Anyone who queries could tell you that, hey, you're going to get rejected a lot, but all it takes is 1 or 2 to get accepted, and you're in. but I got rejected about a dozen times, and I started thinking to myself, like, well, is this the best story it can be, right? Um, because like I actually have copies because I would print it out and on occasion, and I have copies of like the original story, and like this is how I started off the story back in the day. This is really vulnerable, right? Hidden away in the far depths of space lies Planet X. Long considered a myth by the people of Earth, the planet's history stretches to the beginning of the universe itself. Oof. That's all I'm going to read from there. But it wasn't great, right? And so I started thinking to myself, like, well, is querying the right thing for me to do? And so I kind of like paused my writing, and I'd learn things here and there. Like I would watch videos on how to be a better writer and get people's inputs and all that. But I would do these drafts. I would say like, okay, I'm gonna improve it, and it would improve marginally, but really not enough to like ever kind of query again. Then life happens and I started teaching, and it still remained this thing in the back of my mind, like, okay, I want to do this. These characters are still important to me, but it just was never my primary focus. You know, life happens, and that just kind of is what it is. Really though, the last year or so is when I've had this kind of revitalization of my interest with the book, because these characters still mean a lot to me, right? No matter what, I mean, I find myself when I'm listening to music, when I'm on a walk, when I'm on a run, I'm thinking like, oh, you know, this scene or this moment in particular, I just can't let it go. And you'll hear people say like, well, don't become too attached to your first story. And, you know, maybe that's valid. But to me, I truly want these characters to be out there some way, either published traditionally or self-published. I just want to get it out there. Okay, I want to be done with it. Not done, you know, I have sequels in mind, but like I just want it to be out there. And whether people like it or whether it's what degree of success it is, that's just up to whatever happens. But I just want to say like, hey, I made the best version of this possible I could possibly make. But part of that has been maturing, right? So this idea that Matthew and I made started when we were like kids. And so I started thinking to myself like, well, you know, there were things in here that like characters that aren't fully developed, that their goals don't make sense, that the villain could be better, that some of the secondary characters could be more fleshed out. In the book, Jack has a love interest named Ava. And in this draft, these early drafts, I mean, she was really just there to kind of be his girlfriend. She really had no individual autonomy. That he would do something ridiculous and she'd be like, oh, okay, I forgive you. It's like, dang, you know, that's not great. I fell into those kind of bad tropes. And all these sorts of things, I started thinking about like, well, I got to do better, right? So I really feel like, yes, you know, there's that trap of like not letting a story go. But at the same time, I felt like I truly had never done it justice because I had kind of been trapped in this, you know, this old kind of shell of what the story started off as. You know, I had to kind of grow up in order for the story to grow up along with me. And so I really kind of took that foundational first draft and started to rewrite it. But even then, I've struggled with focusing, right? Because I'm a social studies teacher in my main job. I also run a side business where I sell comic books with one of my good friends, do all sorts of stuff, and it's been hard to focus. And I found what's helped me focus and be more dedicated is getting more involved in the writing community. And someone that really helped me out with that is my good friend Amber. Amber Ortiz, we actually went to middle school together, so we've known each other for years. And she actually, I got to find it at some point, but she actually drew a very early version of Rob, which is pretty cool. But she posted on Facebook, I want to say it's like May or June, that she was working on this book, Curse of the Nightingale, or Romantasy, Gothic Romantasy. And I was like, oh, I'd love to, you know, to read it. I'm working on a book. And she actually said, oh, I'd love to see it. And I was like, oh, you know, you sure? Because at that point, you know, I'd been kind of stuck. But now there was a difference. Now somebody actually had to see it. Now I couldn't just say like, oh yeah, I'm working on this rewrite. Now I legitimately had to rewrite it because somebody was holding me accountable. So I started basically trying to write a chapter a week. Sometimes it'd take me a little bit longer, but I would read her book. She would read mine. She was working at a much faster pace. So she finished her book before I finished mine. Mine's still not done with this draft. But it was very cool having that accountability and having that feedback, and also knowing like, hey, I'm a decent writer, because she would be like, oh, I like this, and so that was cool to see. Um, and so over time, I've wanted to get more involved in the writing community, and that's kind of where this channel came in. Is I thought, okay, I don't want to lose momentum, right? I don't want to go back to how it used to be, where like I would say like, oh, I'm working on this book, then it doesn't happen. To me, if I could get more involved in the writing community, having more writing friends, having more people where I'm alpha reading for them, or they're alpha reading for me, or we're just exchanging advice or gushing out about each other's worlds. If I could do more of that, it creates more of a, I guess you could say, a commitment, right? That no, this isn't going to be something I put off. Like, I am going to do this, right? This is not just on the back burner. This is not something I'm going to say I'm going to do. I am going to do this. And so that's where really the channel came in, is I've learned things over the years. I've learned how to make a better start than hidden away in the depths of the galaxy. I think I'm a better writer than I was years ago. I've read stuff, I've learned from people, all sorts of things. And so I feel like I can provide some insight through just learned experience, because I can tell you I've made a lot of mistakes. And to the same token, I've learned how to fix those mistakes. And I'm not a perfect writer, but I do feel like I have something to offer. And I think I can be entertaining, so I've had fun making these shorts. And I also want to show people like the journey along the way with the Princess of the Stars, as I'm getting closer to finishing this draft, and then doing probably, obviously edits and things like that. And then, I don't know if we're going to do self-publish or traditional publishing or where this takes me, but I just want to show the journey along the way to kind of hold myself accountable to an audience. And so I have no idea what I'm doing, to be honest. I don't know how the algorithm works, and my goal here is not to get like hundreds and hundreds of subscribers. Obviously, for those of you watching, I appreciate it, and those of you that have subscribed, and we've got over 100 now, which is neat. And if people want to check out the book or read excerpts, that's great too. Also, if you're a writer and you want some help, if you want someone to alpha read or beta read or arc read or all the reads, I'd be happy to help with that too, because this is a group effort. To me, what I found hard about writing, and this is kind of where I'll end here before I ramble on too long. Writing can feel very solitary, which, I mean, writing is a individual action, but if it's too solitary, you begin to get in your own head. You begin to wonder, am I a good writer? You begin to slack off. By being involved in the writing community, I have felt that I have been doing better, right? By providing feedback to other people, by having feedback provided to me, it's made me a better writer. It's also made me more consistent, and it's been a lot of fun. And that's really the core of this, right? I want to have fun, and I want to make it to the finish line. And I hope you guys can stick around with me as we get closer to that finish line. It's been great, and I'm somebody who just likes to write. That's fundamentally the thing here. Is I like writing, I like storytelling, and to me this is a story I really want to tell, and it is the best version of that story that it's ever been. And I say that not as like an egotistical thing, but I have the proof of these drafts that were not good versus the drafts I have now that I truly feel like I'm finding my voice, and the plotting, it's doing all the things. And so I'm excited to share it with you guys. And I'm also excited to meet more people. So like if anyone ever wants to talk about writing, about anything, feel free to comment. Would be happy to talk to anybody about writing stuff. And just looking forward to having a lot of fun along the way. So I know the video kind of ran a little bit long. I appreciate anybody who stayed the course with it. But looking forward to sharing more with you guys. And we'll see you soon. Alrighty. Bye.